Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted to be peering into the creative studio of comics creator Lovern Kindzierski. Lovern, thank you for jumping in and talking with me for a few minutes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Glad to have you. I'll mention a couple of titles, but you have worked on a lot of books, quite a
Way
few
too many.
books. I was looking through just last night at Batman Holy Terror because I was a big Elseworlds fan, and your coloring with the Norm Brayfogle art is just wonderful. Animal Man, Norse mythology, Doctor Fate, as well as Agents of Law, and just a variety of books and titles and worlds that you've crafted in. So much appreciation from this side of the Zoom.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. Also appreciating the art that's on the wall behind you, the creative space that you've got there. So
Oh,
thanks
yeah.
for bringing that.
Yes, I've got the actually, I guess what you're seeing is the bottom three, which is
Hmm.
the one on the far. I gotta get mixed up. The far one I'm pointing at in
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
direction. That's from Dr. Fate with Sean McManus. And the center one is a page from a Barry Windsor Smith Conan. Uh, uh, God, which one is it? It's the one where his big Norse friend gets killed. And the last one is Spider Jerusalem hiding behind the lamp there
Oh, wow.
from
Nice.
Met Metropolitan. No, I'm gonna mess it up. Anyway, too many things to remember, and first thing in the morning, I'm maybe not the sharpest I could be. I'm still working on my first coffee.
Oh yeah, yeah. By all means, and coffee as you need to. I'm 2 or 3 cups in at this point, so
Oh, cool.
yeah. So how did you decide that comics was the creative space that you wanted to be in?
Um, I'm not sure I was allowed to decide. My father was a comics fan, and when he came back from the Second World War, he had comics under his arm that he
Wow.
saw. I guess through I guess he would have seen them in maybe Montreal on the way back in and that.
Hmm.
So my dad had a box of comic books when I was a kid, and the
Wow.
first thing Uh, one of my early memories from when I was like about 5 years old was sitting out on the stand that my mother stood on to hang the clothes up in the backyard, and it was a nice piece of wood there, and it was smooth, so it was like my little drawing table, and I think I was trying to copy a Phantom cover.
I love it. Love it. Yeah, that's cool. And so what were those books that he brought back? Were some of those like some of the early superhero comics, or was
Yeah,
it Bond
yeah.
or oh, okay.
Uh, Unfortunately for me, they were all destroyed
Mhm.
by my mother at one point, but there was really early stuff that he got. So I think I'm, I'm trying to remember. Well, he had the first Superman,
Oh
but
wow.
I remember it being in not great shape when I was little
Hmm.
before my mother decided to burn the box. And I think he had some Fighting American, and I seem to remember. I seem to remember some. I don't think he had any EC. I think he had um, the early Vision stuff. Was
Hmm.
that Simon and Kirby that did the early Vision? I can't remember now.
Think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those things sort of vaguely. And then there was comics that were not in the box, not locked in his closet that I could rifle through. And a
Hmm.
lot of those back then you could buy, you weren't supposed to, but he knew the local pharmacist. And back then they tore the covers off of the comics, send the covers back in for the ones they didn't sell. And
Hmm.
so he would give me a pile of comics to read that didn't have covers. So I had that's and so I guess I was really impressed with getting a Phantom with a cover on it,
Hmm.
and that's why I was trying to copy it because I didn't have covers on the books, which is probably safe with little kids.
Right,
It's
right.
the comics that you don't care if they get left out in the rain or destroyed.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we sort of nodded toward the span of books that you've worked on, and I named some titles, but any particular sort of crown jewels or most positive experiences that bubble to the surface?
Oh boy. Well, there's still stuff that I would love to work on. I was fortunate that I got to color the when they reprinted a lot of the Conan stuff that Barry had done originally. I got
Hmm.
to do covers on the reprints, and then work with Raphael Cannon on the regular Conan title. And I've worked on some of the stuff on Transmetropolitan, uh, but not the regular. I wasn't the regular colorist, so some of the stuff that was done, some of the art things where they had a collection of pinups and that. But um, I trying to remember. I don't think I got to do anything with John Buscema, and
Hmm.
he was a huge hero of mine. I was lucky to meet him and got to sit down. I think we were stuck at a table in I'm trying to remember which table it was. I think it was Marvel in San Diego, and so I spent an afternoon yakking with him. That's that
Nice.
was a that was a big thing for me, and many other people like that. I've got to work with Jack Kirby again, recoloring stuff when they did a Challenger story. So I got to work on a story with Kirby, and I've worked with Will Eisner and guys like that, as well as the next generation of people like Kaluta and Wrightson and them, and then newer guys like Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and that when Image was first coming out. Eric
Hmm.
Larson was. I had really liked working with Eric Larson on a little bit of the Savage Dragon stuff and that, which was great because I'd kind of been a fan of his stuff since his early Doom Patrol stuff at DC, and
Hmm.
I liked his really dynamic way he drew it. He wasn't trying to make he wasn't trying to do what Buscema and Alcala had done with Conan and stuff. It was a really different approach. So I've got a wide range of styles and art that I really enjoy. Um, uh, Meeting and working with Gil Kane on a couple of things was great. So it was the convention life allowed me to meet a lot of the people that I really enjoyed, and then being a colorist, I got to work with a lot of other people in that. So geez, it's hard to pick out gems because I have been really lucky and got to meet a lot of my heroes that I idolized growing up.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. Very cool. Like trying to pick out a gem in a jewelry store, I'm sure.
Pardon me?
I said it's like trying to pick out a gem in a jewelry store, I'm
Oh
sure.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, until you see the prices.
Right, right, true, true. That is true. Um, so in terms of your work and your approach, what are some of the things that you think about, the sort of process that you go through as you're coloring a book?
Well, I just got asked that by somebody who may be working on a relaunch of the Hellblazer stuff on Constantine.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
I got a call from a designer in LA who may be working on that. So I don't know if this is a scoop or not.
Nice,
But
nice.
he asked me about that because they were looking for, I guess they wanted a different look for what they're doing in that. And so I had to think about when I was working on Hellblazer, what I was doing there. And sometimes it's something you have to work out with the editor
Hmm.
or something, or for the editor, because the editor will come in and say, uh, like on the early Constantine Hellblazer stuff, Karen really wanted a different look for it, and that's why she wanted to avoid people who had been doing regular comic color at that time or superhero color. And so I remember we met and we talked about the look of a lot of different books in that, and so I didn't want it to be too colorful in that because she wanted a different. I mean, it was a precursor of the Vertigo look,
Hmm.
so she wanted certain things in that, and so I tried to give her what she wanted in the story, but also work out a thing where uh, I had uh, I had, you're always thinking about the storytelling, so you want to have the people get that moment in the comic book that they would in like watching some of those early horror movies where everything might be a little bit dull or that, and then suddenly there's this bright green light in the background or a bright red light, and it's like, uh-oh, something bad's gonna happen.
Hmm.
So you have to decide if you want to use that to turn the volume up, or if you don't want to use that because you want the picture, the horror of the picture, depending on what it is, to carry that. So you make decisions like that, and it's a similar process again with superhero books. But with superhero books, you've got all the bright lights in that, so you want to think about um, do you want to go with flat stuff going into sad things or just storytelling questions and that and then after that, like when I was first working, I had to figure out what I was doing because it was the early color separations, and
Hmm.
depending on the book you might only have like 40 some colors to use. So at that point, it's really a lot harder to figure out what you want to do when you only have three blues.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting and complex work as well with a
Mhm.
lot of decisions.
Yeah, and it's also when I first got into coloring in that, I was fortunate in that I was working out of George Freeman's studio.
Hmm.
I was the studio monkey. I made really good coffee. But I got to work with him as his color assistant on the Elric, and that's how I started working out on the first comic stuff where we were painting little blue lines of the I guess they were printed size blue lines,
Mm.
and so you would hand paint stuff like that, and working on that, and I think I've bumped my brain out of where I was going with this. But again, it's a lot of different decisions.
Hmm.
And when I started doing hand painting, and so I could mix up any color I wanted, and I was familiar enough with airbrush so that I could get any effect I wanted. And then I went into working with DC and had to step back into just those few colors and make those decisions from that. And then we developed a digital chameleon and computer color,
Hmm.
and then had to start working out the rules for that. Some of them. Some of the rules for early computer work were that the art direction from the companies was that
Hmm.
they didn't want us to use all the computer tricks. They wanted us to use it mostly to get the work done fast. So it was originally seen as a production tool to speed up work rather than a creative tool.
Yeah, yeah. I think of Comic Craft as being sort of on the forefront of the digital lettering
Oh yeah,
uh, trend, and then I don't know if you would call it a trend or transformation, maybe.
yeah,
And then um, yeah, Digital Chameleon being right there with coloring in that way.
yeah. We started out when Digital Chameleon was starting out. There was also Ollie Optics with Steve Olaf's company,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
Digital Chameleon was using Photoshop, whereas all the optics were using a vector based program. So they were cutting little shapes to make the colors, whereas we could just airbrush and do more painterly stuff.
Yeah, yeah, very cool, very cool. Um, well, certainly you've expanded the medium, been on the turns of some important changes. What are you exploring in terms of next creative steps, projects, things like that, that you can talk about,
I'm
of course?
uh, uh, okay. There's a couple of things I can't, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll hurt my answer. What I'm looking at is I'm trying to do more writing.
I love it, love it.
And because I look at color, and there's a lot of things I'd like to do. Like Craig Russell has been adapting all of um, the Oscar Wilde fairy tales,
Hmm. Hmm.
and there's one left. So if I stopped coloring tomorrow, I would still have a slot open to do that, because that I would like to finish all of those and see them collected. But so there's, I would want to color the what do you call, the bucket list, because there's still a few people that I haven't worked with that I would love to.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I think I want to explore more of the writing in that, and I've been doing some of that on a series that I've been writing for John Bolton to paint. It's we call it the Shame series because the main character in there is a woman, and her name is Shame, and it's a kind of allegorical, kind of grown up fairy tale
Hmm.
ish. And John's finished painting the first six books of it, and I just sent off the plot to him for the seventh, and I'm waiting to see his breakdowns in that. We're doing that Marvel style.
Yeah, yeah.
There's other scripts that I've worked on where I've written it full script. It depends on, um, I guess, I um, how much control I want to take in. Like if I was working with somebody that maybe I felt was new to the business, then I would probably want to throw a whole bunch of stuff at them
Hmm.
so that they could choose from it and work on their own style rather than say work Marvel style with them, because somebody like John working Marvel style with him, I think is the best way to go, because I don't want to get in his way.
Hmm.
He doesn't need anybody holding his hand. Whereas if I was working with maybe a new artist who had a lot of questions, well, I'd want to try and answer all those questions in the script. So it's
Hmm.
it's a different kind of thing. and 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 I guess it crosses over too when I'm working on pieces of stuff when I'm coloring it, depending on the artist. And that some artists are like, here's the artwork, do your thing,
Hmm.
whereas others are Well, others will say, okay, when you were doing that thing, the story in Norse mythology, you did this sunset thing, and I'd like to do something like that, but stretch it out in the story. So it really, uh, I mean, what I guess I'm underlining is comics is collaborative, and
Yeah.
you have to be able to change your approach depending on the book and the people you're working with.
Hmm. Love it. Yeah. And that's that creative flexibility and being willing to be a good collaborator too, which I love. And knowing who you're working with.
Yeah.
So last question is, where can listeners go to learn more? And you're also welcome to throw in, since you mentioned making good coffee, the secret to making good coffee, but you're also welcome to keep that to yourself if that's
The
more of
secret, no,
a
no,
trade secret.
the secret to making good coffee is chicory.
Oh, nice, nice. Okay. My
Yeah.
dad loves that. So sounds great.
If you've I remember having coffee with chicory in it in Café du Monde on the banks of the river, just in the French Quarter in New Orleans.
Uh-huh.
And they had a beautiful little cafe, and they would make you fresh beignet, and you could go out, and they had a large sort of covered area, but it was open, so you could sit out at a beautiful little table and look out at the Mississippi, and sip your coffee with chicory, and eat your beignet, and try to wake up after the night that you were at the bar for the con.
Right. Right. Nice. Yeah. And so those online spaces, any online spaces where people can connect?
I had some links
Mm-hmm.
that I sent you. I don't know how you will present those, but the online spaces I have are sorry, I'm just moving some windows around here.
All good. All good.
There's lovernk.com is my website, and I have still a lot of work to do on it, but there's some good stuff in there. My daughter is constant. She's my web wizard, so she's constantly going, you know how I asked you last year to do this? Do you want to do it this year?
Nice.
I tend to I've got tunnel vision, so when I'm working on a book, I'm working on that book, and I really don't stop with anything. And if I'm busy working that year, then it's like fitting in family and friends around that. And then the last thing you want to do is to do the job of the modern comic person now is you've got to do your own self promotion and
Hmm.
et cetera, et cetera. But there's my website. There's also there's a book you might want to look for on the Dark Horse site called Satan's Swarm
Hmm.
that I just
Hmm.
finished with. It's a Steve Niles story, but the artist is Piotr Kowalski, and that was a different sort of look that we were developing there. And so I had a lot of input from Piotr on the color of that. Whereas when I worked with him on the Norse mythology thing,
Hmm.
it was more input on from Craig Russell on that because Piotr was working from Craig's layouts. The other site you want to go to is Renegade Arts Entertainment to find my Shame books, but you'll also find two other books that I wrote there. One called Necromantic, which
Hmm.
is a spooky spy book that I wrote that David Ross and Jeff Isherwood did a beautiful job on. And then there's a hardcover book that I wrote called Underworld that's on Renegade Arts, and that was it's kind of a personal thing about me, but it's really about a guy wandering around in Winnipeg who's just escaped from the psych ward, and he thinks he's Odysseus.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's the Odyssey in modern Winnipeg in the late '80s, and CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, put it on their list of books to read the year that it came out. And
Love
then,
that.
I mean, you go to Amazon and you can look up my Tarzan stories that I wrote. I don't think Dark Horse is selling them anymore. I think they've gone and included it in part of a Tarzan omnibus.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I had Tarzan meeting some of the classic movie monsters like Phantom of the Opera and um, the Frankenstein monster, Jekyll and Hyde. But I've written a bunch of different things in that, so that's a smattering of that. And I think if you go to the online list of DC or Marvel talent, like the Marvel.com thing,
Hmm.
they'll have a list of people that have worked with them and a list of their books because my credit list is a very, very long list.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Well, thank you in the midst of all of the creating for taking some time. I appreciate what you're doing in writing, art, and the world of comics. Glad to have you back anytime to talk about any projects that are on the way.
Oh, I love to yak, so anytime you have a question, just shoot me one.
All right, all right. I appreciate that. Thanks so much, and talk again soon.
We will.